2 days away from the Real ID deadline, and some of you have questions about the changes.
You will need the new ID to fly or enter federal buildings, but as people rush to get them, there's a lot of questions about what will happen if you don't have one.
So let's verify. Here's Tanya Rivera.
You know that you need a real ID to fly anywhere in the U.S. as of May the 7th. The other option is to show your passport. But recently, a viewer asked this: I won't be flying, but if I had to go into a federal building, would my birth certificate work to show to get in? Our sources for this verify are a spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security and the White House website. Now, if you're called to maybe say be on a federal jury after May the 7th, 2025, and you don't have a real ID, how will you even get in the building? Dan Velez, a North Carolina spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security, said in an email, a U.S. passport will continue to be acceptable to access federal buildings after May 7th, 2025. A valid U.S. passport remains an acceptable form of identification for accessing federal facilities, including military bases and federal buildings, even if your state-issued ID is not a real ID and it's not compliant. Here's another question to verify with that. A mom planning a family vacation to Washington, D.C. this summer asked, I heard the White House has different rules for tours and won't accept passports in lieu of a real ID. Is that true? We looked at the White House website, and the FAQs, it answers that question. It says, please note that as May 7th, 2025, guests must be real ID compliant to visit the White House. A passport is an acceptable form of identification and may be used in lieu of a real ID, driver's license, or ID. So we can verify, no, you can't use a birth certificate to get into a federal building as of May 7th, but you can use a passport to get into any federal building, including the White House, if you don't have a real ID.
All right, now just to clarify, because there is a lot of confusion, Wednesday's deadline is not the last day you can get a real ID. It'll just be the start of the new requirements.
That's right. So if you have a flight coming up, you will want to get that real ID before, but it doesn't have to be done by Wednesday.
In fact, with so many people rushing to beat that deadline, some officials say anyone that doesn't need a real ID right now, you might want to wait a few months.
We have more info about the new ID and the deadline on our website. You can find it right now on the homepage of THV11.com.